What is going on, everybody? Brian Mann here, Hands-On Auto Training. I have for you an interesting one. This is one of the most interesting no crank situations I've had on a GM in a long time. Guys, I don't know it all and I'm learning every day, but I'm here to share with you what I found on this one. I find this pretty interesting. We got a 2012 Silverado. It is a no crank situation. The shop had messed around with an ignition switch, but I don't know exactly what they did because they do have an ignition switch right here, but it's not installed. You can see here the crank relay has been tampered with or maybe messed around with for diagnostic purposes. This truck hasn't run for a while. When you start having the leaves and stuff like that and rust on the pulleys, maybe you can see that on camera or not. When you get all that stuff going on, you know it hasn't moved for a minute. So this thing has not ran for quite some time. So I was called out because we have a brand new, or should I say remanufactured body control module installed, and I had to program it. The programming went A-OK. However, when I go to start the car, we have a no crank situation just like this. So taking a look here, when I put the key in, we're always looking for a few things. I'm looking for our prindle to be lit up to indicate park. I'm looking for a check engine light, and I'm making sure also that we don't have a security light on. This thing's looking good, so I go ahead to crank, and we have nothing. So anytime you're dealing with any vehicle, always take a look at all the DTCs. I had one code in the powertrain control module. I believe it was a P0315 for a crankshaft sensor not learned. And this here is the code that I had in the body control module. You're gonna see it's like a U1511, I believe. Let's take a look. And yeah, U1511. This code, when you look this up, it only shows for like a loss of communication with a mirror. But check this out. The mirror or compass module is MIA. We have no rear view mirror, and that's what that code is for. So that wasn't really helping us out. We're gonna go ahead and take a look back here at our data display. Data is a huge thing. I went into the body control module and I went into the power mode options. I'm looking to make sure that the body control module sees ignition off, ignition accessory, ignition run, and then our crank mode. So take a look here. We have this run mode, that's cool. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn the key to the off position. Key in, key off, key out, off, key in, off. There's key out accessory. Now I gotta be honest with you, I didn't realize this, and I'll share this with you in a little bit. I thought this might be a problem. But then we go to crank, oh, there's run. And then if I go to crank, I messed that up, what happened there? There's our crank. So let's try that one more time. Key out, key in, accessory, run, and I'm going to crank, and you can see we have crank here. So that's awesome. The next thing I want to do is go ahead into the powertrain control module and make sure that we have the crank request and a crank relay command. I'm going to show you that on a scan tool. We'll go right back in here, powertrain. This is the 5.37 motor, and this doesn't have a manual transfer case. I hit the wrong button. Let's fix it right. It's an automatic transfer case with the manual button, all right? So we're gonna go into our engine control module and take a look at our data display here. And I'm gonna go to electrical theft data. If you have an Autel or Snap-on, it should be laid out very similar to this. We're gonna go into our electrical theft data. And you can see our ignition 1 voltage is good, that's cool. We have our ignition switch is on, ignition relay command is on, and what I'm looking for are these two PIDs right here. Crank request signal, no, and then we're gonna go to starter relay command, says off. So I'm gonna go ahead over here, and as you see, I'm gonna go ahead and crank this thing, and I have 0 request. It doesn't do anything there. And at this point I was kind of confused because the body control module sends a signal over the data lines to the engine control module to say, yes, go ahead and start. So we know our body control module sees a crank position. This is where I kind of got into the diagrams. I was poking around a little bit. But the one thing I found that was the key for everything is this page right here in all data. And this is the power mode option page. I did look around at different ignition switch diagrams. I even poked around Identifix. If it's in Identifix, I missed it. Be the first one to tell you. Maybe it's in there. I didn't find this on Identifix. But check this out. We should have these different positions for each position of the key, these different power modes. This column here is our ignition switch position. We have our power mode transmitted. That is what the engine or the body control module is telling the network of the vehicle the position is in. But then we also have our ignition run crank circuit, and then also our ignition run accessory circuit, and our ignition run crank voltage. So there's a lot of things to look at, and what we had to do is go through these individually one at a time on our Tech 2. Ignition switch off, key out. The power transmit mode should be off. We should have key out accessory, inactive, inactive. So let's go check that out. We're gonna go back into our body control module. Go right back into our power mode on our BCM here. And let's take a look back at that chart to make sure we don't all get confused, because it was confusing for me at first. I'll be the first one to tell you. So key out, it should be off, key out accessory, and it should be inactive, inactive. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this key off, take it out for y'all so we see that. And what do we have here? So we have key out, inactive, inactive, key out, current mode is off. So this is off, key out, inactive, inactive. Now I'm gonna go ahead and turn the key to the accessory position. Actually, I should go key in. Let's just go key in. So you can see the key is in, key in, off. Let's go ahead and turn this to accessory. And it says current power mode is accessory, and it should be active, inactive. So accessory run should be active, run crank should be inactive. Let's just double check that. So in accessory, we have active and inactive, perfect. Let's go ahead to run. In run, we should have run, 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 active, active, okay? So let's go ahead and try this out. Run, run, active, active. Key in, perfect. Let's go ahead to crank. What should we have when we go to crank? It should be in the start position. We should have a crank request, crank, inactive, inactive. So let's go ahead and watch this. I'm going to go ahead to the crank. There's our crank position, and we have crank, active, active. Well, check that out. Our ignition accessory is staying active. Ignition accessory run is staying active. This one right here is our problem. Bingo, there you have it. Our body control module is not only looking at the off-run crank reference voltage that drops from like 5 volts to 4 to 3 or whatnot, it's also looking at other inputs. And it basically is seeing a state that it doesn't like. It doesn't want to have that accessory voltage on when we're in the crank position. It shouldn't be. It should be an illogical input, and that's why it's not sending the signal out on the network to this vehicle, or sending the crank request to the powertrain control module. So I thought this was really interesting. It was a fun one for me. We'll continue onward and upward. I'll show you how I tested it. So I went to a wiring diagram, taking a look at this ignition switch. It took a second to find, and this is in the color diagrams. I figured that the brown circuit right here should be the one that goes off when we go to start, and it doesn't. Back at the vehicle, I went and got my handy dandy little cutters, and I just take this off like this so this circuit's open. This is our brown circuit off our ignition switch, and we have a runner. So that's that. Now we have this new ignition switch Duralast part here. We can go ahead and we'll jam that in there and see what happens in just a second. But let's get back to the data, because data is king. Let's take a look here. I'll show you on the scan tool. Now when I go to the off position, back to run, I'm going to go to crank. It's inactive. The reason that's inactive all the time is because I have the wire cut, but it stays active. Now, before I did anything here, I will tell you I use my voltmeter. So I'm going to flip this on. I am using not a good ground, but I tested the a known voltage source to make sure I have what I'm expecting, right? Always got to check your meter. If you take a look here on this side of the circuit, you will see we have our 14.64 volts, and that is down when I turn the key off. If I put the key into the ignition, that's key in, it's down. Turn it to accessory, it goes to 14, 14, and in the crank position it stays at 14 volts too. So this ignition switch is keeping that voltage high when it shouldn't. All right, so this is the original ignition switch here. I got this guy out, and I put the new one in, and it's pretty simple. Like I said, you just pop down those two tabs. It slides out. You got to make sure you time it right, just so you know it. You got to take off the theft module, and then the key and ignition reader device, little guy back there. You got to pop this thing, pop that out. It's all good. But what I'm getting at here is right now with the new switch in, it starts and runs with our brown wire disconnected. So I did cut this wire before as part of my diagnostic process, which I usually don't like to do. We're going to go ahead and reattach it and make sure it still starts and runs. And it does, so that's cool. So guys, this is just try it one more time. We gotta go ahead and check all of our DTCs, make sure nothing's going on. I think we will have a code now set for that accessory circuit, because we did have that key cycle with the circuit open. That's interesting. This did not set this B13880 until I cut the wire. So pretty cool stuff. Let me turn off my hazards here. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this up, do my post-scan report. Always do that when you're doing this type of stuff. If you guys like this content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I do appreciate the subscriptions. I'm trying to get it to 25,000 before the end of the year. We'll see if we can do it. You guys, let me know if you have any questions. Bye-bye. Okay, this is for all the haters out there, guys. I did cut the wire. I don't like cutting wires, but sometimes you have to. So I did make a tiny little extension. We're using some heat shrink tubing here and little tiny butt connectors. These are the barrel ones. So we're gonna go ahead and put this back together, get it all heated up, and we should be on our way. And I've got my trusty Harbor Freight micro torch. This thing's been through it all, if you know what I mean. Go ahead and put some heat to this thing real quick. Get it all shrunk down so it stays intact, stays in place. So, all right, we're in there. Gotta make sure we start up and have ourselves a runner. Beautiful, beautiful. And now I'm gonna do that crankshaft variation. We're